Hey everybody, Gerald Leonard here, Director of Strategy at Hawk Media, here with Joe Chavez, who's a paid expert here at Hawk. Joe, you've obviously been pretty busy over the last few weeks with everything that's been changing. I would love to tell or hear a little bit more about it.
Great. So Joe Chavez here, Facebook ads expert at Hawk Media. We've been working with a menswear brand in the athleisure space, and one of our goals was to get their cost to acquire a new customer down from about $50 to $60 down to about $30. And that's where it was about 2 years ago. But as we all know, like Facebook ad costs have continued to rise. So one of the first things we did, like in the Facebook and Instagram ads, is we split out the account with new customers versus returning customers, something we hadn't previously done. And it was just getting real muddy to be able to tell like what's an actual cost for a new customer versus, how much are we just paying for a cost per order. So just overall across the account.
How would you characterize, like, I know that a lot of people think of advertisements in the realm of prospecting versus retargeting. For anyone who's like mildly playing in the digital marketing space, like that's a common thread. Can you talk a little bit about what they were doing before, the COVID-19 situation between prospecting and retargeting, and how maybe you've adjusted, since the change, and where those things have had an impact?
So traditionally, like in an ads account for Facebook, you'll see top, middle, and bottom of funnel. But in that middle of funnel, it gets kind of messy because you're like, are these people who have never purchased before, or are they people who haven't purchased in a while? So what we did is we did prospecting, remarketing, and that's a new customer. And then we have loyalty, which is people who have purchased ever. So we connected it to their email service provider, and we were then able to tell, people who have purchased before and then people who had never purchased, which gives us insights and ability to be able to market specific products. So we targeted bestsellers for the new purchaser. We focus on like their best-selling shorts and their tees and different things like that. And then for a past purchaser, we pushed accessories, socks, hats, and everything else you can imagine.
And this sounds like something you will be able to continue doing. Obviously, this isn't only for the current crisis, the current COVID-19 situation. These tactics will continue to live on even as things hopefully return to normal.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've actually seen such success with it lately. We've actually scaled up our efforts. As everybody else is pulling back, we're actually continuing to dive in and go deeper on creatives because while CPAs and CPMs are dropping, reach and CPMs are dropping. Just because it's dropping and just because people are at home doesn't mean that you're bound to get a return on ad spend that you want, or people are bound to buy. You have to now more than ever keep their attention, and they have time to go through your creative. So one of the things we've actually been doing is going so deep on a particular creative. Like we'll spend 3 to 4 hours creating a piece of creative just to make sure that we exhaust everything there is to know about that creative. Because you could put up to 10 images in a carousel on a Facebook ad. A lot of times you'll see like 2 or 3. We've been, maxing that thing out, getting close to like 6 or 7. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I can actually show you some examples of what I'm talking about. So here is their short. One of the things we did is, I look at the product display page, so the landing page for the product, and then just begin to like dissect that into pieces, look at the features, the benefits, the reviews that we have on that, and then take all the images that are, across social and touch all those up and build out this carousel that goes really deep and gives a great first impression, especially for somebody who's working from home, who's taking a quick break and just hopping on social. Something like this is bound to keep their attention a lot longer, and it gives them a great representation of the whole product all the way through. So doing things like this across their different bestsellers has been huge for us.
Good stuff. Yeah, sounds amazing. So when it comes to some of the successes that you guys have had over the last couple weeks, has it been consistent? Like, have you had to adjust like consistently? Has one thing worked, then you've had to pivot? Talk to me about some of the changes that you've had to make after some of maybe the initial success from some of the drop in traffic and some of the drop in competition on some of the channels that you are operating in.
Yeah. So like over the last 3 to 4 weeks, we were seeing, every week, like ROAS was going up, half a point to 1 point. And then that's when we saw CPAs dropping around the $30 mark for new customers. So we decided to go ahead and double budget overall. And in about 7 days of doing that, we've seen a pretty big drop off. And there are some other factors, like they've stopped some other promos that are running. But we're seeing, even a drop off there as we start to scale. Then that's just to say, like, no account is perfect. This isn't, guaranteed to, as you scale budget, you're also scaling ROAS. Like, usually that never happens. So we're seeing the usual signs in here, but overall, we're still seeing a big increase in revenue, even in this time.
So when you say that you've seen ROAS drop as you've increased budget, that's obviously something you can expect for any channel as you're trying to scale. Has ROAS been in line with, say, pre-COVID numbers, or has it dropped even below some of those numbers prior?
Yeah, now it's probably a little above where the line was before COVID-19. So we're still, a lot better. But, as any brand, you get used to those numbers, being in a good place for a couple of weeks. That becomes the new normal, no pun intended. But yeah, so we've seen numbers still stronger than they were pre-COVID-19.
Sure. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the next couple weeks or the next couple months are looking like? Obviously, none of us are 100% sure what things will be like, say, even 3 to 4 weeks from now. But how are you currently preparing yourself to be nimble and appropriately react?
Yeah, so not to get too in the weeds, but we're beginning to break out extra ad sets focused on products that we know are big in the summer. So focusing a lot on shorts, focusing on a lot of our key bestsellers, so that if things were to, start to dip down, or, people started to pull back from spending as much, and it started to impact the brand, we would be able to turn off the pieces of the campaign that aren't working as strongly.
Sure. Got to have those stop gaps in place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's something we like to do, is once it's working well, we begin to, kind of create that contingency plan. Like if things were to drop, what would it look like? Just so we don't get caught off guard.
Amazing. Well, thanks for the time, Joe. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.